Okay, everybody, I am here with Miss Crystal Rose, which is like such a divine name. Obviously, we've connected on that. And I'm just so excited to have you here. I would love to let you introduce yourself because off air we were just talking about everything you do, and I do
Mhm.
not want to butcher it because you do some amazing things. And yeah, I want to hear about it. And then I'll kind of chat with you about kind of how you got into it.
Yeah. So I am a human behavior expert and transformative coach for high performers, mainly high performing women. So
Those
I
high
help,
achieving.
yeah, that high achiever, ambitious, driven woman. And so I help with the mental and emotional transformation to find that clear path to where you want to go faster.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanna touch on first, like, how you got into it, of course.
Yeah. It's such a funny story because I even tell potential clients, right, when I'm on a call with them, that I would not have hired me however many years ago. I'm like, I get it, right? Like I get that there's some skepticism here because I
Yeah.
talk big. I'm like, we could do this and we could do this because I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew everything in the personal development space. And I was really looking to blow up my nutrition coaching business at the time. I owned a
Okay.
boutique. And I loved like the women empowerment space. I used to own a magazine, and so I fell in love with nutrition coaching because I found a lot of freedom in what I was teaching. So I was really passionate. And I started building this nutrition coaching business. I had two coaches working for me. And I inquired about enrolling in this certification that I felt like would help me go really deeper. Like, what is holding, women back from really going all in on themselves? Because it wasn't just the method, right? It wasn't just the diet. And what ended up happening was this program I enrolled in just changed my life from the inside out. Like it was crazy. Because I'm like, oh, they won't teach me anything I don't already know, blah, blah, blah. Mindset, personal development, I know everything. Um, I really thought the founder would just help me blow up my business, like with business tactics, not even close. And what ended up happening is this is a 10-month program, and 6 months into it, I'm like, oh, my life has completely changed. I had struggled with like anxiety and depression, and I would take on all this stuff and get overwhelmed and like spiral. And I had all these big dreams and I would sabotage. It was just so many things. And then
All of this.
suddenly I'm doing amazing in my business, my boutique, like my sales tripled and I wasn't working harder. And I'm like, what is happening? And so I ended up giving away my nutrition coaching business so I could go into this. And then eventually a couple years later, I closed down my boutique so I could go all in because I was just seeing insane changes with my clients and just knew that this is what I had to do. So I
Wow.
really feel like I tripped and fell into my calling.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love those kinds of stories where I love the way you put it too, like tripped and fell into my calling. But like, and I love those kinds of stories because I feel like that's how we pursue kind of like the signs from the universe or whatever you
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
call it. And then we kind of just like find what we're meant to do and what we feel so passionate about and
Yes.
aligned with.
Yes.
So, okay, let's chat. I obviously, don't want to give away all your secrets, but I want to talk to that woman out there who is a high achiever and who
Mhm.
is doing that. So, she's a high achiever mindset. She, takes on all the things like you were just saying. Like she takes on way too many things. Her
Mhm.
plate is way too full, but then she does the thing where she gets burned out, doesn't follow through, kind of self-sabotages.
Yeah.
How do we get in there and kind of help her, realign, I think maybe her priorities or, where do we even start?
Yeah. So a lot of coaches are like, take a break, get some rest,
Yeah,
they're like,
that
stop
woman
doing what you're
does not
doing.
want to.
No, she doesn't. She's like, what? Because, like, let's be real, you take a break and then it all comes back, right? Like, it's
Yes, and
all
you're gonna
still
just
there.
do it again. Yep.
Yeah, it's all still there, and so I don't do that. And also being told to do less, right? Especially if you have a lot of good. Especially if you're taking on a lot of good and you're really excited about those things, it can feel crushing because you're getting overwhelmed, but you don't wanna have to drop any of those balls in the air. And so what I like to look at is is we're really operating at our maximum capacity, right? Like your capacity is here, you're operating here. And so it just feels like you have no room and no space to go anywhere. So what I do is I help you actually expand your capacity. Like we expand it because you think you're operating at your max, but we can actually open it up a lot more by finding your energy leaks, by what are you doing that you hate? Like, how can we create more space? And so I do that first and foremost is let's expand that capacity, because suddenly you're doing all the things that you were doing before, or you might have, some things might have dropped off that you don't really need to do. You might have even picked some things up and you're like, wait a second. Why am I not freaking out right now?
Yeah.
Because we've expanded that capacity. So that is like my number one thing that I like to go in and do is let's open that up so you don't feel so crushed and so overwhelmed. And
Mm.
I'm also not telling you to quit. Oh my gosh, I would never tell you to
I
quit.
know, right? Yeah.
Unless you really truly deeply need to and want to, then yeah, like then maybe we get there
Yeah.
eventually. But I'm not like, you got to stop this and stop that and take a
Yeah.
break and relax and go take a nap, because then we freak out. We're like,
It
we
just
can't.
does make you freak out. Yes. I actually had somebody tell me that I should quit. I've had a couple people, and I think that that's a little bit more common than I realized it would be.
It's so
But
common.
when you get overwhelmed and then people, especially family members, because they don't get, not everybody gets that pursuit of wanting to be an
Right.
entrepreneur.
Right.
And so, the family member is like, well, why are you even doing this? You have a perfectly fine day job. Just,
They don't get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you're spending money or whatever you're doing. But also in the entrepreneur space, I've had a couple of people tell me that, like, well, you seem very overwhelmed. Is this even for you? Do you actually
Mhm.
want to be doing this? Does this even something that feels aligned? And I'm like, hell yeah. Or else I
Yeah.
wouldn't be loading my plate up with things to do, right?
Right. And then what do they got after that, right? When you're like, yeah, I actually really want to do it. And then they're like,
Yeah.
well,
That's
I don't know how
exactly
to help you.
yeah. Yes. So I love this, like, so helping that high achieving woman, and it doesn't even have to be just an entrepreneur, right? I'm sure you work with many
Yeah.
different kinds of people, yeah.
Yeah, I work with, women who are in the corporate space, who have big goals to excel in the corporate space, and women in the military and professional athlete. Like I've worked with such a range of women that there's high performers and in every genre.
Yes. And so, yeah, and helping people to realize that they can do it all. It's just
Yeah.
that, maybe we don't have to do certain things, so we are not feeling quite aligned with, and those energy leaks, like you said.
Yeah, we got to find them, right? And it's just to tell someone blanket like you should stop doing this. We're like, well, is it really aligned? Like that's your solution? It's like when I really get in there with someone, and I've worked with clients like this, right off the jump, I'm not going to be like, oh, it's very clear that this is not aligned for you, because they're not there yet. And
Mhm.
my opinion doesn't matter, right? It's not about my opinion or what I think someone else should do. It's guiding them into their truth and discovering these things for themselves. So I can talk to someone and within 5 minutes, I could have be like, gotta do this, right? But that's not helpful. That's not useful. And they're gonna fight against that. Both their conscious mind and their unconscious mind is gonna fight against it. And so it's more about guiding them into themselves to truly like, are these things aligned for you? Where you discover that and you might start realizing there's so many things around you that actually aren't in alignment, or they're
Yeah.
really not what you want. And so then we get to move through that. Or it could be like there's some big thing that you're scared to even claim. Or
Mhm.
maybe there's something you don't even know, right? You're like, this is not what I want, but I don't even know what that looks like.
Yes.
And so we get to like figure that out together, as opposed to, well, if you don't know, like, but you should know, it's like, no, we're going to discover that. We're going to figure that out.
I wanna talk to you because you had mentioned earlier emotions
Hmm.
and working with emotions. I wanna hear a little bit more about, what that looks like and that kind of thing, because I'm sure it's not just like, let's sit with our emotions and let's go. And you already talked about like, we're not going to take a nap and like put it back. And a friend of mine actually, oh my God, a friend of mine who is a high level, achiever, entrepreneur, she's always like, I hate this saying, like to give myself grace. And it's something that I actually say a lot, give
Right.
yourself grace. But she's like, no, because that to me feels like I have to put it all down and come back to it later on. And so
Yeah.
I want to talk with you about that, like that aspect of kind of what you do as far as emotional work.
Yeah. So I see there's like two ends of the spectrum when it comes to emotions, right? We've got people shoving them down and being like, nope.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna feel this. This sucks, right? And then we have the looping in them. Because when
Mhm.
I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, I have no problem feeling my feelings," it's like, mm. When
Ah,
you crawl up inside of them, right? Because your thoughts are triggering the emotions, and the emotions trigger more thoughts, and then back and forth and back and forth. You're kind of swimming in this like soup of a negative feedback loop, right? Like it's a soup. And there's no ability really to self-soothe in there. It's just like we're at one or the other. So many of the women that I work with, and this used to be me, really live in our heads. We're
mm.
overthinking, we're over planning, we're always on alert, we're hyper vigilant. There's just so much going on there, right? And so we're not really able truly to feel inside of our bodies what's going on in our system, even like hear our intuition, because a lot of the times we hear it and we're like, no. Because logic and reason gets in the way, right? Elbows its way in. So really the first step, and I call it the rare formula, is the first step is we reawaken that connection to our bodies.
Mm. Fine.
We cannot change from our minds, right? Because our conscious mind, it's like we're busting up against this like brick wall
Yeah.
almost, right? Through our conscious mind and our unconscious mind speak completely different languages. And so when our conscious mind is looking in the mirror going, I'm pretty, I'm pretty, I'm pretty, I'm successful, right? Our unconscious mind, if we don't truly believe that deep down, is like, no, you're not. 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 You can't bully it, right? And if you want to sit around and babysit your thoughts all day, by all means, but it doesn't actually work. It doesn't actually change your unconscious. And the body is a direct portal into that unconscious mind and into change. So when we get into our bodies, we get out of our heads and we get more embodied into our bodies, we can feel and express our emotions, but we move through them. It's not about crying all day every day. It's
Oh,
about when we experience sadness, we allow ourselves to experience sadness. We move through it. A lot of people are afraid. If I start feeling my feelings now, I'll never stop. Right? I'll never stop.
yes, that's how it feels.
Yeah, and I don't have time for that shit, right? Like I don't have time for it. And it's finding that equilibrium in that pendulum of that center of I'm
Mm.
experiencing a feeling, I'm going to move through it, and then I'm going to be okay. And then we can move on. But the shoving it down tends to come back and get us later, or the
Mm.
swimming in it
Yeah.
stops us from getting done what we want to get done.
So working through it.
Yes,
Yeah,
moving
I
through
love
the
it. It's like
emotion.
through is the only way out. Um,
Yeah.
and getting into our bodies, like, again, like, I don't want you to share, like, all your secrets, but
No, whatever.
is there something, like, specific that you do with people, or is it kind of, like, tailored, on an individual level? Like, maybe there's a specific type of dance or movement or different things that people like to do?
Yeah, so it depends on the container, right? And so if it's a one-on-one situation or in my high-level mastermind, like I'm able to tailor things to their
Yeah.
experience, right? I'm able to really understand what works for each person because everyone is different. And this is why, over time I've accumulated multiple certifications. I'm working on more, especially in the unconscious workspace,
Mhm.
because not everyone is the same, right? Like everyone kind of reacts to things differently. And I absolutely love having a toolbox that I can reach into and be like, I have just the thing. I have just the thing for this. And then in some of my like courses and digital programs, like there's a formula. And so I make it very clear, like some of the stuff may not land for you, or it may not land now, but a couple months from now, you might be like, oh, wait a second, right? But I always start first and foremost with safety. And it sounds kind of like your safe space, right? But like, no, like, it's not about like finding your safe space and like hiding from the world and like no one can hurt you. It's about really establishing it's safe to be in your body. It's safe to feel your feelings. It's safe to continue to do the work that might be uncomfortable later on.
Mm, good.
Right. Because sometimes we're facing things and it's just like, oh no, I'm not going there. Or things that maybe happened in your past or in your childhood that
Yes.
have created these coping mechanisms that you might think is your personality,
Yes.
but
Oh,
it is
I
not.
love this. Yes. So
It's not. I'm sorry, but like people pleasing, perfectionism, control freakism, achievement, addiction, those are not personality traits. Those are coping strategies. Yeah.
So,
You know?
yes.
So we've got to be able to face those parts of us that may not feel good facing. And first and foremost, we got to establish that safety in our body. And most people, I didn't even know what that meant. When I was like, okay, we're finding safety in your body, I'm like, eh?
Yeah.
What? Because I didn't know what that was. It my brain couldn't really wrap around it. So being guided into it really allowed me to feel that. And it really helped in that process of facing the stuff that just sucks, healing.
Yeah, I wanna make a point. I don't know if, this is completely aligned, but, just feeling safe, of course, in our bodies to
Mhm.
know that it's gonna be okay and we're gonna get
Yes.
through it because like you said, I mean, sometimes these behaviors stem from obviously, all kinds of things that we've gone through
Mhm.
in our childhood,
So
but
many
it
things.
is scary to unlock that Pandora's box because
Mhm.
then it's like, well, if I have to heal this, then I'm gonna have to heal my whole childhood and all the trauma I've
Mhm.
been through, and I don't even remember half of those things that caused me to become the
Right.
person I am today. And so that feels very scary and overwhelming. But like you said, I mean, we can just remember that it's absolutely like creating that safe space for ourselves
Yep.
that we can visit, we can come back. But the point is to start working through pieces.
Yeah, and here's the thing too, like, I've got people who come to me and they're like, "I haven't had any trauma, so I don't know why I'm like this," right? They're like, "What do you why am I like this?" And then there's people like I experienced a lot of childhood trauma, so I knew exactly what my problems were, right? I knew where they came from. I didn't know how to unravel them. I didn't know how to heal them. Even with years and decades of therapy, it was like we talked about them to death.
Yeah,
Like, you
talking.
go in, you unpack it, and then
Yeah,
they're like, "Alright, time's up." You have to zip that bag back up and carry it out with you
yeah.
and relive these tough moments, and so, most of the time in therapy, I just dissociate, right? Like,
Mhm. I
to
would
to
tell them what they wanna hear. I would sit there
Yeah,
and just, like, cross my legs and just, "Oh, okay,
yeah.
yes, everything's fine. I don't
"Here's all
know
my
why I'm
stuff.
here." Yeah, and let
Yeah,
me just
here's all
say
here's it
say
all."
something funny to yeah, I
I
wasn't
mean,
gonna
they would look at me like I was a circus freak because 'cause they're like, "How are you not on the floor shaking and sobbing right now?" And be like, "'Cause this is not my first rodeo, lady. Like, this is my life. This is what I've been through. I'm just relaying it to you so you can catch up and help
yeah,
me."
yeah,
And they
exactly.
couldn't, they couldn't because just the awareness of knowing why I was, or getting, like, knowing the root of these things didn't help. Getting to the root of them and unraveling the root is what helps, and that's what I get to do.
Yes. I love that, and I really, really, really want everybody to hear the point you just made is getting to the root and unraveling. So, what I've learned from my personal stuff, I've done a lot of kind of energy work with people,
Yeah.
and there were times where we couldn't get to like, I did a lot of emotion code work,
Okay.
that helped me release things, and not everything I could get to the root of. I couldn't
Mhm.
remember everything. However, it did help to release. But I love what you said about getting to the root and then unraveling. When we can get to the root, how big of a deal that is. Because
Yes.
for me, that's where therapy came into place with then energy healing and other type of
Mhm.
emotional work, right? Because I was able to kind of find the source, find the root through therapy, but it
Mhm.
never really helped me heal that. But I was
Right.
glad that I kind of could identify
You're
things.
like, "Great, I know
Yeah.
now."
Like, now I know, like, now I feel like what you said, like, it's
Yeah.
unzipped, it's all out there, but now what do I do? And so what you
Mhm.
said, unraveling now. Now we get to kind of
Yes.
go through it and heal it.
Yes, and finding the root, like, I mean, that's the thing is especially the personal development space and
Mhm.
even the therapy space, right? Like, talk therapy, is we're focused on the behavior. They're so focused on the symptom, which is, like, great. Obviously, if you walk into the hospital and you're bleeding, like,
Yeah,
from
yeah,
your head,
yes.
and it's a mysterious bleed, we don't know how it happened, like, we need to stop the bleeding, sure, let's go after the symptom, but also, like, what is causing it?
Yeah,
And I like that two-pronged approach, right? But I really do like to get in deep, and if there's a root, like, I'm gonna find it.
yeah,
And then there's things too where, you know, there's such this, like, need to know if you don't remember, right? Like, when we have repressed memories, people are like, I wanna know, I wanna uncover," and it's like, your brain did that for a reason to
yeah,
protect you, and if you don't remember it, good.
yeah, yeah.
Good. And guess what? Let's not dig because I have even seen, I have had friends that they knew there was something there, and they've done EMDR, and they went into therapy, and they to uncover it, and it just caused, so much more dysregulation for them. And it is just like, for me, I'm like, it's such a big no-no to uncover repressed memories, because they're there. Your mind, when it's safe, your mind will let you know, right? If there comes a time for that. And this is why, like, a lot in the healing space, like, that you got to feel it to heal it. I agree and I disagree on that. I feel like, yes, if there's an emotion that comes up in the moment, letting yourself feel it and moving through it is very important. I do not think you need to relive the feelings of your past in order to heal them. That is bullshit.
So good. Yeah.
Bullshit. And I don't need someone to come in and unpack everything that happened, right? I actually have helped people heal so much stuff from not knowing at all. Like, they haven't had to actually tell me anything. And we've been able to unravel it by going through, some of the processes that I go through to figure out that root. They know it comes up in their mind, but I don't need them to share it in order to
Yeah.
move through it,
Still move through it.
Yeah. If they want
If
to
you
tell me after, they can, but I don't need to know.
Yeah, I love that. Like, um, I'm just thinking, like, if you could give one tip to that person who isn't quite ready to sign on full time with a coach, but they
Yeah.
need to start unraveling something. I mean, where could they start?
It's always got to start in the body, right? Like, we got to get out of our heads and into our body, because any amount of, like, personal development work that you do from your mind is literally going to be like punching a brick wall. You're not going to get anywhere. You're going to gaslight yourself into trying to change your beliefs, right? And then what I see happen all the time is we feel like we're making all this progress, right? We're like, we're doing the things, and catching ourselves when we're negative, right? Like, and changing our thought in the moment, and every negative thought we have like two positive ones, and we're like doing all that. We're babysitting our thoughts all day. And then it's like, when shit hits the fan, you realize that you've made like no or very little progress, right? You're back where you started. Or you
Yeah.
wake up one day and you're like, I was doing so good. I want to get back to when I was doing so good.
Mhm.
But it wasn't sustainable. It didn't stick, because it was all from this, like, conscious mind, right? We got to get into the unconscious to actually truly change. There are things that I used to struggle with that they don't even come up, because I've unraveled them at the root. I've healed the root of the thing. And so the symptom, the behavior isn't even something I have to think about anymore.
Mm.
And when my favorite text, my favorite message from my clients that I get is, who even am I right now?
Oh, I love it.
Because something would happen that in the past they would have reacted a very specific way, the way that they always do. And they just did it. And they didn't have to think about doing something different. They just did something different. And they're like, what?
Where did it come from? Yeah.
What? I get this, like, even if, we were one-on-one or we're in a group, and, like, of course I stay connected to all of my people, but I don't need them to need me. It's not like, you got to hang on. Like, you're not
Yeah.
done, like, take a break. Fine, go on. And I'll get like a message like 6 months after a container closed, and they'll be like, oh my God, this happened.
That's
And I'm
so
like,
awesome.
woo, I'm like so pumped for them. I love that they're continuing to see massive changes and shifts.
That is so freaking awesome that, like, even, 6 months later down the road,
Yeah.
they're still shifting, so it's obviously just extremely impactful.
Yes.
I love
Yeah.
it. Okay, can you tell us where everyone can find you and,
Yeah.
how can we work with you? Like, how can we, learn more about what you do?
Yeah, so I started a new account on Instagram. It's at the
Ooh,
Embodied Baddie. I have my personal one's Xtal Rose. If you want to follow me there, you can. But mostly I'm posting on the Embodied Baddie. That's my IG. Chrystalrose.com, of course, CHRYSTIL rose.com is where you can find all of my offerings. I literally have, like, we start at $7, right, for the 3-day shift, and
nice.
that is my whole goal behind that program, is just to show you how impactful embodiment work is. And just imagine if we were to go deeper, right? So generally people get the shift, they're like, oh, okay, what else? what else we got, I
Yeah.
have a membership that's like $59 a month. It's very like I'm going in and I'm talking about what I'm going through at the level like of embodiment that I'm at, right? And so giving this like higher level perspective to people. And I've got, a mastermind and one-on-one stuff coming up. So it's all the things.
Well, I was gonna say it's all the things.
It's
I love
all the
it.
things, programs and all of that stuff. I if I get excited about something, I create something for it. So
And I will, of course, link all of that in the show notes,
yeah.
your handle and all of that. And could you just tell us, I always like to ask for just one kind of self-love or self-care, tool that people can use, like something they can go do tonight after
Yes.
listening to this.
Yeah, I would say breathe. And
Oh,
it's stupidly simple, right? But just deep breathing connects you to yourself and to your body. Um, I'll shoot you the link to it, but I have a free breathwork podcast, right? And it has over 100 meditations, and you can go 5 minutes or like 30, right?
yeah.
But even if you just set an alarm, this is what I have in the 3-day shift. You just set an alarm like 3 times a day to just take 3 deep breaths, just in through the nose, out through the mouth, long, deep breaths. You're going to notice just a change in your mood and in your state of being and how it feels.
So good.
Yeah.
Thank you so, so much for coming on today. I
Thank you,
just appreciate
Audrey.